our council meeting to order. Most of the events that are taking place down front tonight will be covered by our Mayor Pro Tem. I had the privilege of having a shot in my spine at 4 o'clock and one in my hip, so I don't feel like standing up too much tonight. So I appreciate him covering that for us. I'll ask that you do please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. God Almighty, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings that you have taught us to try to bring upon each other through the example of what you have done for us. Give us wisdom, give us kindness, and give us understanding. In a precious name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
First item on the agenda tonight is the recognition of new employees for the city of North Charleston. Every month we honor the new employees that have dedicated themselves to work at the city and to serve our community. And I think it's an important gesture and act that we do to recognize our new employees and to thank them for embarking on their new journey. With that, I'll call you up and ask you to come stand right here. From Public Works, Joseph McNeil. From the Police Department, Jamil Hornsby. Caitlin Fincher. Denisha Bananaman. Close, maybe? Beneman, that's close. Joshua Whitmore.
You forgot code enforcement, Mayor Pro Tem.
That person has been removed.
Okay.
Am I good? Okay.
Good.
I apologize. I'm working through this as we go here. Didn't have a script. But just wanted to thank y'all for coming to work here at the City of North Charleston. This is your council. They're the ones that approve your paychecks and the budgets that go into your departments. But on behalf of the mayor and city council, I'd like to welcome you here to the City of North Charleston and wish you the best in your career as long as you're here with us. So thank you very much.
Hope it's a long time. Now tell them the good thing.
Tell them
the good thing?
They can go home.
Y'all can go home. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. That wasn't in the script either. So. All right, next we have a resolution of support by the Citizens Action Committee, and I'm going to ask the clerk if she would read that resolution at this time.
Yes, sir. This was approved by the North Charleston Citizens Advisory Commission on Community Citizens Police Relations Board on March 25th, 2019. A resolution supporting the City of North Charleston's ongoing efforts to allow the South Carolina Technical School College system to teach the basic courses required for police officer certification to provide a larger pool of certified officers for hire. Whereas the North Charleston Citizens Advisory Commission on Community Police Relations was created by the Mayor and City Council on November 10th, 2016. And whereas the mission of the NCCAC is to review and learn the practices of the department and make recommendations to help improve the relationship between the North Charleston Police Department and our citizens. And whereas the NCCAC has spent the past 2 years learning about departmental policies and practices, meeting with members of the department, reviewing issues related to community relations, and discussing ideas to improve community relations. And whereas the NCCAC has studied the current training methods used by the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy, information has been provided by the North Charleston Police Department staff, city legal staff, and a presentation by the current director of the Criminal Justice Academy. And whereas the Criminal Justice Academy program requires officers to receive all of their training, a 12-week course, at their location in Columbia. Having only one training location limits the number of certified officers available to hire throughout South Carolina. And whereas the city's police department has been actively encouraging the SCCGA and lobbying the legislature and governor to allow technical colleges, such as Trident Technical College, to teach the academic and classroom portion of the basic training LE1 curriculum with practicals along with the proficiency tests occurring at the SCCGA, they would then be able to focus their allotted resources on advanced training, certification of instructors in both basic and advanced training courses, as well as oversight of all South Carolina officer certifications. Now therefore be it resolved that the North Charleston Citizens Advisory Commission on Community Police Relations hereby expresses its support for the city's ongoing efforts and asks the City Council to request the Law Enforcement Training Council to place on its next agenda an item to consider a program that would allow the basic training portion of classroom training necessary for proper certification to be conducted in the existing South Carolina Technical College system. The above resolution shall become effective immediately upon its ratification by the North Charleston Citizens Advisory Commission on Community Police Relations. Resolved March 25th, 2019.
Daniel, we got some of the group here with you tonight. Thank you all for serving. If y'all would please stand. They've been working for several years for us, trying to find ways that we can enhance the quality of our agency and enhance the service relationship with our citizens. And this is something that they've come out with their own idea to endorse a plan that we're trying to get going in the state where we can certify our officers more rapidly and do a lot of the training here instead of having to go all the way to Columbia for it. Trident Tech is working very diligently with us. And so we greatly appreciate not just this, but the support that y'all have given our police agency in coming up with ways to better enhance the service to our citizens as well. Thank y'all very much.
I believe you have a name to...
Yes, I'd like to call up Ms. Robin Thomas.
There she is.
And at this time, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the proclamation.
Whereas sarcoidosis is a potentially debilitating and deadly multi-organ inflammatory disease estimated to affect 200,000 people in the United States with no known cause, cure, or reliable treatment to slow or halt the progression of chronic cases. And whereas the signing and symptoms of sarcoidosis vary widely depending on the person and organs affected and can include debilitating fatigue, shortness of breath, difficulties with balance and coordination, irregular heartbeat, visual problems including blindness, pain affecting joints and muscles, weakness or numbness of limb, skin rash and discoloration, mood disorders such as depression and anxiety, organ failure, and sleep difficulties. And whereas sarcoidosis can affect people of any age, race, or gender, but is most common among adults between the ages of 20 and 40, and 3.8% higher in African Americans than in whites. And whereas sarcoidosis is a diagnosis of exclusion as there is no objective test or biomarker, numerous diagnostic tests and ongoing clinical observations and/or management lends to high economic burden of this disease including great costs to patients and family members. And whereas volunteers, researchers, caretakers, and medical professionals are working to improve the quality of life and prognosis of persons living with sarcoidosis and their families, and more research is needed to find more effective treatments and improve care for those living with the disease today. Therefore, be it resolved that R. Keith Summy, Mayor of the City of North Charleston, does hereby proclaim April 2019 as Sarcoidosis Awareness Month and urges all citizens to learn more about sarcoidosis and to become involved by supporting sarcoidosis research within our community.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to present you with a copy of the resolution. And if you would like to say a couple words, you're more than welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I've dealt with this disease since the year 2000. It's a very, very cancerous, if you will, type disease. It has all the symptoms of cancer, with the exception of, in my case, it's in my sinus, my eyes, my lungs, and my skin. Please, if you see anyone or know anyone who has sarcoidosis, please tell them. Hollins Cancer Center, every quarter we have a meeting with sarcoidosis. We have a meeting on the 14th from 1 to 4 of April. April being Sarcoidosis Awareness Month. We try to get out, get the words, get proclamations. We've reached out as far up to Columbia, and we do have a proclamation from the governor there. We're trying to get it on a bill so that, Mr. Summy, no offense, but you won't have to see my face as much if we make it a bill, because
It's a beautiful face, dear. Don't worry.
we'll be able to allow people to identify it, and so that's what we're working on now, getting a bill for it. But thanks for the opportunity.
If you will get a listing of when your meetings are held, we'll be glad to add it to our website as well.
Okay,
So that people
thank
are
you very
looking,
much.
they will get it out as much as we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next, Ms. Deanie Atkins and Ms. Phyllis Mayer.
And anybody else that you
And anybody else that would
bring
like
along.
to.
The crew.
Ready?
She's going to read the proclamation first.
A proclamation. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. And whereas we remember with sadness the 11 million people, including 6 million Jews, who were victims of Hitler's final solution, along with those who were persecuted for their religious and political beliefs, sexual orientation, and physical disabilities. And whereas we remember with admiration the resistors and rescuers, known and unknown, who risked and lost their lives to save others. And whereas we remember with respect the survivors who escaped, were sheltered, or who were freed, and who lived to contribute so much to our community and to our world. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and government. And whereas we have an obligation to ensure that the memory and legacy of lives lost or forever changed in this horrific event are never forgotten. Therefore, be it resolved that we hereby do proclaim May 2nd as Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Day in our community. Be it further resolved that we pledge today to firmly commit ourselves to never forget and to work to promote human dignity by confronting intolerance and hate whenever and wherever it occurs. Now, therefore, R. Keith Summy, Mayor for the City of North Charleston, pursuant to an act of Congress and the United States Holocaust Memorial Council, do I he does hereby proclaim the week of April 28th through May 4th, 2019, as Days of Remembrance in memory of the victims, survivors, rescuers, and liberators of the Holocaust, and further proclaim that we as citizens of North Charleston, South Carolina, should promote human dignity and confront hate whenever and wherever it occurs.
Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of the mayor and city council, I'd like to present you with the proclamation that she read.
Thank you very much.
And give you an opportunity to say a couple words if you'd like. Yes, sir.
You go ahead.
I'd like to say a few words. My name is Eileen Chepnick. I'm the president of Charleston Jewish Federation, and I serve on the South Carolina Council on the Holocaust. Every year on Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, we pause to remember that prejudice can lead to genocide. In our world today, it's more important than ever. Instead of getting better, things are getting worse. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. There are attacks on Jews all over the world and even the United States. And Holocaust deniers are popping out of the woodwork every day. We can't let this happen. You have before you tonight 2 Holocaust survivors. I hope you'll take an opportunity to shake their hand if you haven't done so yet. Joe Engel is 91 years old. When he was 13, the Nazis came to his hometown of Zakroczym, Poland. I had the opportunity to go there and see it. And he ended up in Auschwitz, the most notorious death camp, where people died from unconscionable bestiality, starvation, disease, torture. And Joe managed to survive that. He participated in the death march at the end of the war when the Russians were approaching. The Nazis wanted to hide their crimes, and they started marching the prisoners away. And Joe escaped from the death march. How did he do that? He jumped from the train and hid in the snow. It was January. People froze to death. If they couldn't keep up on the death march, they were shot. Joe escaped, jumped off the train, and buried himself in the snow and hid there for hours while the Nazis looked for him, and they finally gave up. And today, he spends his life educating people about the Holocaust, and he's 91 years old and probably only be around about 10 or 20 more years. So we're so grateful for him. I go to lunch with Joe a lot, or just walking around Charleston, and he always wears this sign that says his prisoner number, which is still tattooed on his arm. And people walk up to him and shake his hand and say, thank you for surviving. So we remember the survivors, and we remember the ones who didn't survive. And we have Dientje right here, who was 4 years old, from the Netherlands. And her parents gave her to some farmers to hide to save her life. She lived with a nun who pretty much locked her in a closet for 3 years with nothing but her doll, Annika Pope, and beat her all the time. And she was also abused, sexually abused by the priest, and went through other things, escaping, hiding in the forest, being in concentration camps. As a young girl, age 4 to 7, we think back what we were doing at that age, from 4 to 7, her childhood was stolen. After the war, her parents also were hidden, and they came to get her. She didn't even know them anymore. She didn't even want to go with them. And she's made a wonderful life now with 2 beautiful daughters, and here's one of them, and also speaks all over the place about her experience. So we have to all take a vow that when the survivors are no longer with us, we have to be the ones to remember, and we have to always fight against prejudice, because genocide is in our world, and we can't let it remain that way. So thank you for taking the time to remember.
We do have our candles with us tonight, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's been 75 years since the Holocaust ended, and the word anti-Semitism is not a new word. It's a longer word, especially when it's compared to the word hate. We all talk about history repeats itself and never forget, but we don't have to look too far for anti-Semitism anymore. All we have to do is look at our own United States Congress. Joe and I talked the other day, and he said, never in my life would I ever imagine the United States Congress being anti-Semitic against me. And for what reason? What reason except hate? Hate hurts. Hate kills. And it repeats. And all we have to do is open the paper again. Look what's happened in Alabama. 3 black churches were burned by a 21-year-old man. We are repeating ourselves, and if we don't do something about it soon, we're all going to be in trouble. We all may be back in internment camps. We all may be back in a concentration camp, a death camp. So I want you please all to remember, never forget. But besides never forget, do something to stop it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Now we got problems. I had an error message, so y'all who usually follow me, you've all been cut off. Sorry. Unless Tony can come up and do something about it. I'll go on to the next item on the agenda, with your permission, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Item 1 is a request to approve the minutes of the March 28th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jerome?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2 is the final reading of an ordinance providing for the regulation of non-consensual vehicle towing within the city of North Charleston by amending Chapter 10.5 to add sections 1100 through 10.5 through 1115 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of North Charleston regarding private non-consensual tows.
Move approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor Sammy,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to mention the fact that a lot of hard work went into recreating this ordinance. And I'd like to applaud Mr. Scott Chambers for all of the work that he's done on this, and our attorneys and the staff. The other thing, Mayor, I would like to make a recommendation that we assign or ask some of our very best tow truck drivers, owners, to be a part of our process so that we can get information from both sides of the fence. Again, a community of this magnitude really, really needs to be very collaborative in these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jerome?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 3 is the final reading of an ordinance authorizing the City of North Charleston to sell property which was purchased with Greenbelt funds to Rhett Road LLC located at 1100 Rome Lane.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jerome?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 4 is the final reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a reciprocal parking easement and maintenance agreement between Dorchester County School District 2 and the City of North Charleston for the Aquatics Complex.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jerome?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 5 is the first reading of an ordinance adopting a bill to be entitled An Annexation Ordinance of the City of North Charleston annexing an area known as 52Z in Charleston County, TMS 478-03-00010 in Council District 6.
This is the first reading. Here we have a motion. We move it to second reading.
Yes, sir.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jerome?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
And our attorney will report on it before we have second reading.
Correct. And item 6 is the first reading of an ordinance rezoning portions of the properties addressed as 4251 South Rhett, Charleston County TMS numbers 47012, lots 194, 104, and 105, from R3 mobile home residential to R2 multifamily residential, and concurrently amending the comprehensive plan's future land use map designations for the same parcels, changing them from single-family traditional to multifamily residential, and changing portions of the conservation to multifamily residential in Council District 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. As we just heard, we have a rezoning request at 4251 South Red Avenue to rezone the property from R3 mobile home residential to R2 multifamily residential. It's approximately 6.1 acres in Council District 7.
Oh, there we go.
There we have the property, an aerial of the property along South Red Avenue, and a zoomed out version of the property south of Park Circle. And the proposed rezoning request is to rezone the property from R3 mobile home residential to R2. You can see the shaded areas there on the exhibit. Then we would require a map amendment to the future land use map, changing those designations from conservation and single-family traditional to multifamily residential. And the subject properties are undeveloped parcels just south of Park Circle, between a CSX rail line, South Red Avenue to the east, Rivers Avenue to the west, and Noisette Creek to the south. And they propose to rezone from R3 to R2. There are adjacent R2 zone parcels to both the south and the west, and there's R2 zone property on the opposite side. And the comprehensive plan would require an amendment to support the rezoning. Staff has recommended approval, and the Planning Commission has recommended approval.
Any questions by council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Megan, thank you. You said 6 acres. Is that the only parcel being built on? Is there map here reflects 49 acres.
That's correct. It's just the 6 acres that are being rezoned. We don't have a building plan at this point that we've seen.
But you've listed on the application 4 TMSs.
That's correct. So we've got 0.33 of an acre of a 10-acre tract,
Okay.
a half acre of a 5-acre tract, and so forth.
It appears it's a lot of wetlands, so that must be, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none without objection, it's referred to the Public Safety Committee, which meets at 5 p.m. this coming Thursday, next Thursday. And that's when the public will have an opportunity to address council on it.
Item 7 is the first reading of an ordinance rezoning the properties addressed as 8784 and 8788 Deerwood Drive, Charleston County, TMS numbers 48614, lots 21 and 065, from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Multifamily Residential, and a concurrent amendment to the Comprehensive Plan's future land use map designation for the same parcels, changing them from single-family suburban to multifamily residential.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, as we've just heard, we have a rezoning request on Deerwood Drive from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Multifamily Residential. The property is approximately 1.14 acres and in Council District 3. There we have an aerial of the property along Deerwood Drive and a zoomed out map showing the property there in the Deer Park neighborhood. The proposed rezoning request is to rezone the property from R1 Single Family Residential, shown there in the light yellow on the map, to R2 Multifamily Residential. And the rezoning request would require a map amendment to the future land use map designation, changing it from single-family suburban, shown there in the yellow, to multifamily residential. The subject parcels are located in the Deer Park neighborhood on Deerwood Drive, about a block and a half north of Otranto Road, and the applicant is applying for a rezoning from R1 to R2, which would allow redevelopment of the site with multifamily buildings. The property a rezoning would require an amendment to the future land use map, and as the property is in a single-family neighborhood with all of the adjacent parcels zoned R1 and the change is not currently supported by the comprehensive plan, staff has recommended denial, and the Planning Commission has also recommended denial.
Any questions by council?
Mayor Sami?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm making a lot of statements this evening. I am concerned about this property, and I want to make council aware of the fact that there are 52 single-family homes going in right across from this request. Also, I'd like to make them aware, everybody aware of the fact that we have a very serious problem at the corner of Otranto and Deerwood that has not been addressed in the 3 years that I have been on council. And I would ask everybody to look at this property very closely and to give your opinion and truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none without objection, it's referred to the Public Safety Committee, which meets next Thursday at 5 p.m. That's when we'll have a public hearing on the issue.
Item 8 is the first reading of an ordinance rezoning the properties addressed as 4445, 4447, and 4503 Oakwood Avenue, Charleston County, TMS numbers 47008, lots 109, 110, and 111, from R1 Single Family Residential to PD Plan Development, Oakwood Avenue subdivision, and concurrently amending the comprehensive plan's future land use map to provide a designation of single-family traditional for the portion of parcel 47008000109 that is a recently abandoned right-of-way.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a rezoning request to rezone several properties on Oakwood Avenue from R1 Single Family Residential to Planned Development titled Oakwood Avenue Subdivision. The properties together total approximately 2.75 acres and are in Council District 8. There you have an aerial of the subject property and a zoomed out version showing the property there in blue south of Buste. The proposed rezoning request is to rezone the property from R1 Single Family Residential to Planned Development. And a proposed amendment to the comprehensive plan would be required to give a land use designation to the former right-of-way. There is a concept plan of the planned development, which is required as part of the ordinance. Subject properties are occupied by a manufactured home park known as Phase Mobile Home Park. The applicant has submitted the Oakwood Avenue Subdivision Plan Development District Guidelines to rezone the subject parcels from R1 to a planned development to be known as Oakwood Avenue Subdivision. This PDD proposes to replace 18 mobile homes with 21 single-family homes on 2.75 acres of land and vary the zoning requirements for the R1 and Conservation District overlay. The property does meet the requirements in order to be rezoned to a PDD. And the PDD lists the permitted uses as single-family detached residential development. The planned development also proposes variations to the zoning ordinance, such as the setbacks, the riparian buffer, and the conservation district regulations found in Section 10 of the zoning ordinance. All other requirements in the North Charleston Code of Ordinances will be followed. And the properties are located also in the floodplain. And as the proposed PDD supports the redevelopment of the area while maintaining the character of the neighborhood, staff has recommended approval of the planned development, and the Planning Commission has also recommended approval.
Any questions by council? Hearing none, this is referred to the Public Safety Committee meeting, which meets at 5 p.m. next Thursday, and that's when we'll have the public hearing on the issue as well.
Item 9 is the first reading of an ordinance rezoning the properties addressed as 4240 and 4250 South Rhett Avenue and 110 and 1150 Rome Lane, Charleston County, TMS numbers 470-1500056, 57, 113, and 116 from R2 multifamily residential and CRD commercial redevelopment to PD planned development, South Rhett multifamily, and concurrently amending the comprehensive plan's future land use map designation for parcel 47015, lot 116, from major business retail to multifamily residential in Council District 7.
Okay, as we've just heard, we have another proposed planned development. This is on South Rhett Avenue and Rome Lane, approximately 3.77 acres in Council District 7. There we have an aerial of the properties that would make up the planned development along Rome Lane and South Rhett, and a zoomed out version, and this is also south of Park Circle neighborhood. And the proposed rezoning request is to rezone the properties from R2 multifamily residential and CRD commercial redevelopment to a planned development titled South Rhett Multifamily. And this would require a map amendment to the future land use in the comprehensive plan, changing the designation from major business retail to multifamily residential for some of those parcels. There you have a concept plan showing the potential layout of the planned development, and the link to view the entire document. The subject parcel is located just south of Park Circle, which together total over 3.75 acres, are requested for rezoning to a planned development to be called South Rhett Multifamily. The applicant seeks to redevelop the land as a multifamily development and proposes to change some of the ordinance requirements for multifamily development. The proposed PDD would allow for a 52-unit townhome development to replace the existing manufactured homes and storage building. The PDD has proposed variations to the zoning ordinance, including the riparian buffer and some of the setbacks. And they've noted they will be requesting a waiver of the stormwater requirements. As the proposed PDD supports the redevelopment of the area, staff finds that the use proposed for the properties is consistent with the land use plan for the city, and staff is recommending contingent approval for the PDD based on the release of the parcel from Greenbelt, which this council heard this evening. So staff has recommended contingent approval, and the Planning Commission has also recommended contingent approval.
Any questions by council? Hearing none, without objection, it's referred to the Public Safety Committee, which meets at 5 p.m. next Thursday, and at that time, the public hearing will be handled.
That's all the agenda items, sir, with
Thank
the
you.
exception of some speakers.
Thank you. Remind the speakers as you come up, you have 3 minutes in which to speak. Please state your name and address so that we have it for our records.
The first request is from Mr. Jason Crowley.
Mayor Summy, members of council, my name is Jason Crowley, Director of Communities and Transportation with the Coastal Conservation League. I wanted to come tonight to just take a minute to thank you all for co-sponsoring with the Conservation League in Charleston County on the recent ULI Advisory Services panel of the Rivers Avenue corridor. I also wanted to especially take a moment to commend your excellent staff over this process, particularly Adam McConnell, Ryan Johnson, Charles Strayton, and Eileen Duffy for their very hard work putting all of this information together for the panelists who came in with a lot of information that they needed to absorb in a very quick amount of time. Your staff put in a lot of outside time, a lot of on-site time, and really made this a really great opportunity to work together. I hope that this is the start of this process, not the end of it, and that as you all are digesting the information that was presented last week, just like we are and the county is, that we'll come up with some really great ideas and policies to set forward. And we already had a committee meeting yesterday, and hopefully we'll be able to get to a point where that can be a formalized committee and bring that open to the public and make sure that we have a lot of participation from the community to be able to really make sure that the south end of North Charleston is a great place to be and maintains the culture and vibrancy that has contributed to the character that's there today. So thank you all, and looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next request to address council is from Ms. Kay Hahn.
Good evening, Council. I'm Kay Hahn. I live at 5129 Celtic Drive in Oak Terrace Preserve. I'm a member of the Unitarian Church in Charleston and also the Charleston Area Justice League. Our vision for our community is one where everyone lives in a safe, healthy, and affordable home with enough money left over at the end of the month for food, medicine, and childcare. However, our reality stands in stark contrast to our vision, as I'm sure all of you are aware. Our housing problem is at a crisis level. Those earning $15 an hour, which many do not, would have to work 54 hours a week to afford a basic two-bedroom apartment in our current housing market. North Charleston, as we know, leads the nation with an eviction rate of 16.5%, 10 evictions every day. So this problem isn't just a Charleston problem or a Mount Pleasant problem or a North Charleston problem. This is a problem for our entire region, and therefore we in the Justice Ministry think it should be possible for working people to afford housing and still have enough money for the basics. Every child deserves the opportunity to succeed in life and in school, which starts with a decent place to call home. On Monday last, over 500 community members gathered and signed this house, which my compadre stood up there for you to see. It is, in fact, a petition, and it shows our support for the Charleston County, Charleston, North Charleston, and town of Mount Pleasant to not only establish a regional housing trust fund, but also that our council members will support it and fund it as well. So we call on you as our elected officials to come to our Nehemiah action on May 6th and let the community know where you stand on ensuring that everyone has a safe and decent place to call home. Mayor Summy, when we met with you on February 20th, you suggested that we do a presentation on this housing trust fund for a few members of the council, and we look forward to hearing back from you as to when that will be scheduled. Thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you.
The next request to address council is from Jason Wingate.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jason Wingate, 3220 Good Iron Way. I'm here on behalf of Mad Mom Towing to discuss the towing ordinance again. There's a few things in here. I've read this ordinance over this week, and I've also taken the time to read about 30 other ordinances from South Carolina and other surrounding states. There are a few things I'd like to address. The first thing that I see is the insurance requirements 5 times higher than any ordinance I can find anywhere in the country. Anywhere, $500,000 in garage keepers. If you read any other ordinance, it's $100,000 that you're required to carry. Just give me 1 second. There are a few other things in here that I see that are just very confusing that I really hope that you guys maybe can answer these questions for me. We're allowed to enter into an agreement with the private property owner, but now the city of North Charleston, this council has decided that they will dictate what that agreement says, because now we have to get written permission for every vehicle that we tow. Why would we enter into an agreement with the property owner? Why would we take our money, which is what we do, and put the signs up that the state legally requires us to do, when we're going to have to get a signature for every car we tow? What's the purpose of the agreement? Makes no sense to me. Then we've got in here that that we have to start taking credit and debit cards. And not everybody wants to take that form of a payment, and I think it's a big overreach of this city council to tell us what type of payment that we have to take for releasing someone's car. You give someone, they pay with their credit card, they just leave, say the card's stolen, charge it back, and we lose the money. That's why we started only taking cash. Then we've got directions of police officers shall be obeyed at all times, and any licensed wrecker will promptly furnish service when requested to do so by the police in order to clear traffic to promote public safety. This is not found in any other towing ordinance anywhere in the country that I can find. Okay, so basically what this says to me is that if an officer wants, he can walk up to me, tell me to move a vehicle, and I can do it. Doesn't say anything that I can bill the city. I guess you guys are going to pay the property taxes on my tow truck because you all own it now. Then we've got, and then on the same page, you've got it that we agree to hold the city and all of its employees harmless. So we work for you guys now because it says it right here that we have to follow the direction of any police officers and promptly clear traffic and promote public safety, which is not what I went into the towing business to do. If I wanted to promote public safety, I'd have signed up to be a policeman. Okay? So now we have to do this, and we agree to hold y'all harmless. We do all of this by getting y'all's decal. So now we need 5 times higher insurance than any other place that I can find. I mean, maybe there's somewhere else that requires that much insurance, but as far as I can find anywhere in the state of South Carolina or Georgia or Florida or North Carolina, nobody requires that much. Yield my time.
Thank you, sir.
The next request to address is from Thomas Nelson.
First of all, I want to thank the council for letting me speak.
Name and address, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
My name is Thomas Nelson. I live at 7522 Tedder Street. I am the former owner of Mad Mom Towing. When my mom passed away, she left me the company, and then I sold it. Things that were said in the past, things that were done in the past, I just want to leave them in the past. There's no changing it now. Things that Mr. Pontieri has done and has sent emails out and where I got pulled over and harassed, that's all in the past. I agree with Ms. Jameson, totally. I think we can all sit down, the owners, it's not going to be me because I don't own the company no more. I'm just a driver. And as you know, Mr. Mayor, you used to drive a tow truck. You used to work for Crosby's Towing. I do believe we talked about that at a Shoney's one day. I think all this can be resolved if we all just sit down and talk with each other as adults and try to work this out. The insurance is too high. Okay. The city of Charleston is the only one that regulates private property tows around here. Y'all are getting into that now. But they also regulate other things about how much they can charge private properties and such sorts. They don't require the same insurance that you guys do. So if we can all just work it out, sit down amongst everybody, we can all agree to it, and we can all get this worked out. I'm not feeling very well, so I thank you for your time. I yield my time.
Thank you, sir.
The last request to address is from Mr. Jeff Corbett. Jeff Corbett?
Mr. Corbett here. I don't see him. Anything else to come before council? Hearing nothing, let me just make one statement about the towing, and we're not here to get in a debate with anybody. If there had not been a problem, we would have never had to address it. We didn't want to get involved. But when we had people who were getting screwed by tow truck drivers out of the city of North Charleston, our job is to stand up and fight for our citizens, and that's what we're doing. This meeting is adjourned.